Hello, everybody. My name's Laurie Kirk, and I'm from APMG in Canberra, and welcome to another edition of Midday Mentors. And today we really welcome and thank you very much for attending Gary Duffield. And Gary's the Alliances Director with DDLS. Hello, Gary.
Hello, good afternoon or good morning, depending, I guess, on when you're watching this.
That's right. And now, Gary, you're in Perth. I'm in Canberra. So there's a couple of hours difference. And what I thought we might do today is just go through a little bit of background. There's been a huge change that we've seen in the training industry, and you've been involved in this industry for many, many years. DDLS certainly has the online virtual learning of DDLS Anywhere, and you're one of the early adopters of that. I'm interested to hear how some of the changes that you made and the impact that COVID made on your training business.
I mean, that's kind of almost a leading question, because COVID kind of dropped out of the sky from nowhere and had a huge impact on our business and every training business. You're right, I've been doing this job a long time. People keep referring to me as a veteran. I'm not sure if I like that or not. But nothing in the last 30 years of doing this job has really prepared me for this. You know, I lived through Black Monday, through the global financial crises. I think I'm into 2 crises now in my lifetime. This is my first ever pandemic. And, you know, you can't prepare for that. Really, you've got to respond almost on the fly. And I think one of the benefits that DDLS has had is we're a very agile organization. You know, I'm fond of quoting the CEO of Microsoft, who said, you know, we've basically seen 2 years of digital innovation in 2 months. We've seen that 2 years of digital disruption a week last Thursday. You know, we really did have to change on the fly. We had to reinvent our business. And as you alluded, and I suspect we'll chat later on, we already had some skin in the game, as it was, because we'd already been doing some virtual training. We changed our modality in a different direction, but it was a direction that already existed, if you see what I mean.
Yes, and you know, I think that ability to have that preparation, I think, is certainly a great lesson. But even so, there would have been it's very hard to transfer over from classroom based. You know, it's your trainer's preparation, it's the clients, it's the scheduling alone is a massive logistics challenge.
You'll be interested to hear that actually scheduling gets much easier in a global pandemic.
Yes.
When I say easier, there are less moving parts because you can have a national schedule, right? But if you've got, what have we got, 6, 7 training centres, maybe 10 classrooms in each of those, there's a lot of real estate that would normally have trainers and students in, and you've obviously got to work away from that because people are not allowed into those training centres. You're right, we were a little bit innovative. We invented something called DDLS Anywhere, and DDLS Anywhere was very much classroom to classroom. So the trainer could be in Sydney, but the students could be in one of our centres in Melbourne attending that event. So it's classroom to classroom. And occasionally we'd have people perhaps from mine sites or remotely dialing in from home or from the workplace. So we'd already made that investment. We had some skill in virtual delivery. And what we were, I guess, lucky in inverted commas to be able to do was actually pivot the entire business to using that form factor, but not having people in a DDS location remotely, but having them at home. So I'll say it was seamless, and anybody from DDLS watching this will be thinking it wasn't that seamless. We were pedaling away like a million miles an hour to make this work. But from a customer experience point of view, it wasn't like, oh my goodness, so many moving parts to connect. Hey, you were going to turn up in a classroom. Now you're going to sit at home and you're going to go through this mechanism to join that training session.
Did you do any modifications in your approach to cater for the people who would be at home? Is there any modifications that you popped into the course?
Yeah, I think you have to. And I learned a long time ago that you can actually have over intervention in training courses when doing virtual. I maintain that I invented virtual learning myself and a lady called Miss Phillips a million years ago when WebEx was but a child, and we built these interventions into the course about every 15 minutes, so people were having to do something. So we've learned you've got to get collaboration in the training sessions. But I've done a few training with other providers recently, and it's almost like you're stopping and type something into your mobile phone and a cloud bubble will appear on the screen, and it's almost like we feel we've got to make sure you're still there by making you do do something. So I think if you've got great trainers, and I think if you've got great content and you've got labs, you probably don't need to put too many frills around the edges. And I'll give you a live example from this very morning. There was a technology issue, not of our making. A class had some challenges accessing some of the services, and the trainer said, look, we're just doing theory, we're having a laugh, we're having a good time, we're taking them on that learning journey. We're having to do some demos rather than hands-on, but people are very tolerant of that because of the current situation, and people are going along on that learning journey. We're just doing it differently. We're not doing it as maybe it was designed to be done.
You mentioned the word tolerant, and I've heard that from some of our training organisations, that people have said their clients are a bit more tolerant of things, and a little bit easier, a bit more relaxed. Have you found that? Has that been reported back to your trainers?
Absolutely, it has. And you and I had a conversation before this. You're expecting cockatoos to fly over your house any minute now.
And they're about to come. You know, it's right on evening, and people, if you hear the great squawking, it's not the Daleks in the background. It's actually it certainly is the cockatoos. So
well, we've got school coming out in about half an hour here, and I expect the ice cream van to park outside. You know, and I've been in meetings where, you know, the dog's barked. Once upon a time, it's like, whose dog's that? Whereas now it's just all part of the experience that we're in, because we're having to work from home. You know, we're having to fit into the environment that we're actually receiving the training from. But one of the things that we've done as a business, because we've still been able to do it, we've allowed our trainers, if they can, to get into the training centres and deliver using the high-end Cisco telepresence equipment that we've invested in. So from a trainer perspective, they're in the comfortable confines of the classroom that they know and love, using the equipment that they're very familiar with. It's just that rather than, you know, 10 people sat in front of them, some people dialing in remotely, everybody's dialing in remotely. And you have to, I'm an ex-trainer, as you know. I don't think I'd make a great virtual trainer. I talk too quickly, I go off on tangents, you know, I tell too many dad jokes. You have to modify your style. You have to learn what your audience needs from that experience. And actually that's key. It's what your audience needs, because as much fun as you may be having delivering the training, it's about making sure the outcomes of those interventions, those learning interventions, are met.
So let's think about, you mentioned the trainers, and both of us are ex-trainers. Well, I'd argue that once you're a trainer, you really never give it up. But let's both of us say ex-trainers. If we were mentoring someone looking and saying, I believe I really like this, I may not be comfortable in the classroom, what are some hints and tips if someone would be preparing themselves to become a trainer? And we might find some people say, look, I reckon I could do that. And also the second part of the question is, what preparation do you find you have to do for trainers now to cope with virtual delivery?
It's funny, we were having this conversation yesterday, and I was recounting a story maybe 20 years ago, and I was interviewing a trainer, and he stood behind a chair as he was doing his teach back as part of his interview, and he moved the chair everywhere he went because he wanted that comfort zone of being a separation of the audience from him as the delivery person. And I thought that was fascinating at the time, and I think virtual does give you that ability to be almost detached from your audience. And I think if you're the kind of trainer who needs that, you probably shouldn't be doing it, because it needs to be an immersive experience. You still need to be in there. You still need to be building rapport. But what I would say is that, you know, whilst some of us just need to turn around and use a whiteboard, right now I need to draw you something on a whiteboard, because once a trainer, always a trainer. Yes. You've just got to get used to using the tools that will give you that capability, whether it's built into the platform, Teams or Zoom, or whether you've got to use a third-party product, or we use a real whiteboards because our equipment zooms into the whiteboards, etc. You know, it's all about making use of the tools that you've got available.
Now you mentioned, have we a reliance on internet speed, and for people outside of Australia, Australia has quite, let's say, interesting problems with internet speed. Fortunately, touch wood as I do, we're going well with the NBN. But have you had any concerns, or has that been a limiting factor in some of the areas, what you've seen over the last 6 to 8 weeks?
We're very fortunate, I think, in that most of the platforms that we use have a really small bandwidth requirement, just because it's a little bit of video and a little bit of audio. If we're presenting from DDLS centres, we've clearly got great control over our end of the connection. But if somebody's in the back of Beyond and there's a bit of damp string, then, you know, the reality is they're not going to get a great experience, and they might have to make some sacrifices. But you use the T word, right? Tolerance. If we've got to turn the video off, so at least I can hear and maybe just see the slides, then I'm going to be prepared to do that. But you clearly have to factor that in, because, you know, it's out of all of our controls.
Yes, it is. And that's interesting. You mentioned remoteness, and I think I'd like your opinion on whether you've seen this could open up. Australia, as we know, is a very large country, and there's some of the times you may not have enough training to run somewhere in Darwin, for example, or Northern Territory or remote areas of Western Australia. Have you seen a change in your business where some of those, you've been able to get into those remote regional centres?
Where we've actually done virtual training in the past, it's quite often been those remote regional centres because people don't want to fly down to Perth or into Melbourne or whatever to attend a training course. And that's a very different paradigm than 20 years ago. It wasn't unusual. I flew to, where did I go? I went to Moscow once for a course. Who would fly to Moscow to go on a training course? I think it was a Netscape course, which really dates me. You just wouldn't do that today. It just wouldn't be acceptable, and you'd never get that passed. So if you are in Darwin and you wanted to jump on a training course, an ITIL course or something with DDLS, you could do that, and you could do that on Monday. That it wouldn't phase us. We could get you digital content because, hey, we've all had to go digital for our content. So it's easier for us to provision that than it would be to think, oh gosh, we've got to send some manuals up there and fly a trainer and find 5 other people. So it does open up new opportunities. But DDLS Anywhere, when it was designed, really innovative, as I've said, it was about classroom to classroom connectivity. We're kind of changing that slightly. In fact, we talked about it as a business this morning. We announced it to our business this morning. DDLS Anywhere is now more of an umbrella term, which includes obviously classroom to classroom when we can do that again. But really, DDLS Anywhere should do exactly what it says on the can. You should be able to consume our services anywhere. So DDLS Anywhere is not just classroom to classroom now. Underneath there's virtual remote, there's virtual classroom. There are other services which will become mainstream. Because the market is now way more accepting. Go back 12 months. Do you want to do this virtually or in a classroom? The answer would be in a classroom. The answer will probably still be in a classroom, but at least they'll consider virtual because they've had some use out of it.
Well, if it helps you, Dave, I did take the train from Wagga to Sydney to do a Word Perfect course. So that sort of date me as well. The mere thought of what we're doing now. I also feel I'd be very interested that if we could talk to the trainers about the connectivity of the group. Remember when you're training, you get that cohort in the group, they've gone through succession 3 or 5 days training, and it's pretty intense. It's nice to see some of those people tend to keep those reactions. What I'd be interested to see do you think that those people themselves will have a greater connection because they've had a different digital experience? So I'd be fascinated to see if they have more connection in their cohort.
Yeah, I hate to play the we're all in it together kind of bingo card, but there is a perception that people are all in this together. We're all having to attend this course in this format because of this environment. If there's one thing I've really noticed, it's that rapport still exists. And I love the fact I get a real buzz out of this. I'm still impressed that you and I can have a conversation and there's video. I come from a world of black and white TV and cathode ray tubes, yet we're having a conversation as if you're in the next room. I'm watching, so I'm stood in our Perth office, I'm allowed in. There is somebody in the remote territories of WA having a conversation with the trainer, having a conversation with somebody who's wherever else in the world they are. And it's not like it's magic or a black art. It's just normal. I'll give you it's not really a funny story, it's just a story. Maybe 8 years ago, my wife became very uncomfortable sat in our living room. She felt she was being watched, and she glanced around, and my daughter, who was about 10 at the time, had left her laptop, because you have laptops when you're 10, on the corner of the living room chair, and there was about 8 faces staring at her. To my daughter, that video conference was normal. That was just what she did. That's how she talked about 5 seconds of summer or Justin Bieber or whatever you did when you're that kind of age. Yet, my wife's generation, it's like this is some kind of magic black art. We're very comfortable with using this technology now, whether that's for learning, catching up with friends, or, even playing board games. Some of my friends are doing, as we've been part of lockdown.
Well, I've also had 5 Daleks looking at me for the last 15 minutes, and I've survived.
You have. Well, I've got Suddy taking control there as well. So. But that's another thing, right? Because we're working from home. I could have put a green screen behind me, but I chose not to because that's an extension of my personality, right? This is my home. Those are my things. I'm not playing with a Dalek in the middle of the living room every night, but it's stuff I've collected over the years, and that is amplified. And people, if I'm presenting something, get an impression of who I am and what I'm likely to be like. Sad middle-aged British geek with a thing for Doctor Who.
Well, we've also had with the different types of learning. Now, we've talked about virtual learning. What about, people are saying, I'm just going to do straight e-learning and a blended package, and that's quite a legitimate type of learning. Have you seen what's the trend? Have you seen that people have tried e-learning and then say, no, look, I really enjoy the connection that virtual classroom does? Is it any feedback that you've had from people?
So e-learning has been killing the classroom experience for about 25 years, maybe even 30 years. I remember it arriving on floppy disk a million years ago and thinking, geez, is this about to change? Is this a paradigm shift? Is this about to change? I think there's absolutely a place for e-learning. But what I would say is that, classroom-based training or even virtual classroom-based training is a quicker learning experience because you're much more likely to finish it. You're much more likely to hit the ground running. The easiest thing in the world to do is to not do e-learning. And I came up with a great analogy the other day to one of our sales guys who was talking about, hey, if a client's got e-learning, hey, embrace it. We can use that. We can actually make sure that provides the prerequisites so they don't need to go on the intro course. But he's a big football fan. I think there's a team called Man United or something. and I said, it's a Fremantle Dockers fan these days. I said, imagine if Manchester United basically learned how to play from floppy disks and from e-learning. There'd be a very different on-field experience than if they have a combination of theory, which I'm sure they do some e-learning, but being out there, being practical, actually, dealing with the thing in real life, talking to other people in that environment, that makes them the team that they are. And then the guy went, ka-ching, I absolutely get it. I absolutely understand that there's a place for e-learning and there's a place for classroom training, and that place can be blended. But here's one for you. Maybe blended doesn't mean do some e-learning, do some classroom stuff. Maybe blended is in modality. Maybe blended is part of this course is 2 days are done virtually, 2 days are done in the classroom, and 1 day is done e-learning. Yes. So it's not now just about, sort of asynchronous versus synchronous learning. It's a combination of both. It's micro and macro level learning, all in the same event.
I'm glad you said that because I've had about 7 inquiries since it started of people saying, I would like to do virtual classroom for my foundation, and most of our 3 days or whatever contact to understand and have that experience. But I probably will go to e-learning when I want to do the next level of practitioner, because they said they wanted, that was their combination. And it's interesting, they wish to have that experience of sharing and listening to others when they're building that foundation knowledge. I'll be interested to see, we should run some stats on that. That would be really interesting if we could see if that's a trend.
I think actually maybe that is happening not for the reasons you might think. I've analysed this, so I can't give you numbers. But what we find is the foundation courses always get very good numbers. As you start any learning journey, there's a lot of people, and that number peters off as you get more advanced. Lots of people do degrees, very few do PhDs by comparison. So arguably, it's actually harder to get onto some of those more advanced courses because they're not running or they get cancelled because only 2 or 3 people. So actually, virtual actually solves a problem for us, and this is one of the things we're working on right now. What should we put back in the classroom? The instinct to say, hey, let's, in the early phases, what should we put back in the classroom? The instinct to say, let's put the really popular courses in. But with social distancing, actually, you limit the number of people who can attend those. So you're doing yourself a bit of a disservice. Maybe the solution is to put less popular courses into the classroom, but let people dial in from wherever they want to in the world. And that way you get one viable course rather than 5 courses that nearly get off the ground.
Yeah, well, I think, and we do have some courses like that that are very specific. One that we've got sharing is a certified professional technical communicator, very niche, and some of your other niche courses that you also run. This might be the opportunity to bring some of those individuals together. Great opportunity for us.
And leveraging the platform. There's more acceptance now. Big data is one that springs to mind. We've got some very specialist big data courses, but we only ever find 2 people in Perth.
Correct. Yes. Now you said we're just about the last couple of questions. I'm looking at trends and what you've observed in people coming through, what people want to learn. I think we probably had that horrible, dare I say, couple of weeks in March where people, it literally froze everything. But then we found, from my sales leads, we found a huge increase. What have you found that people want to learn?
It's interesting you say a couple of weeks where things kind of froze. We got a lot of people saying, hey, I want to cancel the course because we're not allowed in. But once we'd actually explained there was a virtual proposition, we actually didn't, our business continued at lower levels,
Yes.
but our business continued very, very nicely. Thank you very much. But I almost preempted that question and did a little bit of research. You know, if people are being more strategic about what they're getting their people to train in this period. So I run some numbers for March, April, May, June. So this period that we're studying right now. And service delivery is still the single most popular thing in our business,
Right.
by which you probably know I'm talking about ITIL.
Yeah.
But maybe that's not a big surprise because, you know, quite frankly, in these working from home, COVID distributed environments, service delivery is way more important than it ever has been in the history of, you know, the first floppy disk being installed and the first NetWest server rolling off the production line. It's all about service delivery because people, I'm using my own kit right now. This isn't DDLS equipment. This is mine. It's my office, my environment.
Yes.
You know, how do you manage and how do you deal with that? Further down the list of courses that have been popular, you will not be surprised to know that Teams and collaboration type solutions are, you know, right in there. And that's not just the technical make it do stuff in the back end. It's also the how do we go through that change management piece to ensure that, you know, people in my organization move away from the concept of I have a H drive and an S drive and a shared printer, and I'm now working asynchronously and synchronously inside this environment with messaging and sharing apps and sharing documents and doing video conferences. So there's been that huge shift. And then, of course, anything with cloud in front of it. So AWS, Microsoft, so Azure, AWS, even Google Cloud a little bit, are all starting to put bums on seats.
Yeah, look, and I think your observation of the service manager, I'm not surprised at, because I've had from a few people saying we've realised that we have to start. There's a little bit of an exhaustion happening in some of our service areas. We have to then. You know, those people can only run, you know, they're running for months on helping this service happen. We need to train people up to come in and backfill. That's the direct response I've had. And then people have said, same with change. I did some stats on change, both change management courses, people saying, I'm viewing this whole COVID experience as an opportunity to move my career. This afternoon, a person who was in a business analyst said, I believe I've got the skills. I'd like to get some theory of change because I think I've coped really well and I'd like to become a change manager. So I think, yeah, change has certainly we've seen a boon in a lot of inquiries.
As a certified change manager, I can certainly understand why they would want to do that, because everything we do in IT is about change, right? So something's got to underpin all of that. I think the only courses that we've struggled to run virtually have been business analysis. And that's because there's a lot of role play in those courses. So we're working out how best to do those. But you know, if we were allowed in a pub and we were allowed within 4 meters of each other in the bar, and you shouted over, "Hey Gary, I'm thinking of getting a job in IT," you know, what would you say? I reckon as a learning business, we're a great barometer of what's happening in the industry, right? Because if people are training, it means there's a lack of skills in the marketplace. And you know, the huge paradigm shift that's occurred, and we have them periodically, is we are now living in this cloud first world, genuinely. You know, the majority of our technical courses are now cloud, and more cloud. I would say look at cloud skills, look at cyber security skills. That's huge for us. Look at change management skills, because both of the previous two require change management to make something happen, and look at service delivery. If you could present yourself to an opportunity, to a job with, you know, a change skills, with cloud skills, with cybersecurity skills and service delivery, I would say you're going to be looked on very favourably, just because that's what corporate Australia is demanding right now.
And the link to that, they also want verification of your thing, and that's where we come back to that certification.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
And the digital badges that are there, you can instantly do that and say to people, I haven't just attended 7 20-minute sessions. You know, I've actually gone through and I've had my competency, my knowledge tested in that environment. So I think that is where employers, I've had recruitment agencies saying, what should we do? How do we verify? And when we've shown them the digital badge concept, fantastic.
Hiring managers are asking those questions now.
They are.
And they haven't been for a while. You know, when I arrived in Australia 9 years ago this month, in fact, you know, certification wasn't really a thing, and I've seen that grow hugely. Literally, I'm sat an arm's length. I'll prove it. I'm an arm's length away from a drawer full of certificates. There's one picked at random. I don't know what that is. That's my A+ certificate from 1997. Geez, that does date me. But that's not, that doesn't help you give me a job. So we've moved to a digital badging world now, so you can see exactly what was learned. So you've attended this course with DDLS, you learned this, and this. This piece of paper, what does it say? I'm a specialist in DOS environments, so maybe it does give you a little bit of help. So you're right, micro-credentialing.
Yes.
Access to micro learning, access to macro learning, whether it's virtual or in a classroom. They're building up, people who are no longer the specialists, people who've got well-rounded skills. They've got some technical skills, they've got some people skills, they've got some change management skills. And I would argue we were probably there 25, 30 years ago, and then we became very specialist. I'm the SQL guy, I'm the database guy, I am the whatever, the server lady or whatever, whereas now we seem to have much more rounded skill sets. And I think that's because with the arrival of cloud, you don't necessarily need to have that same curly bracket level of exposure to managing those physical boxes.
Well, Gary, that's a great way to finish, if you wouldn't mind, on our area.
Oh, I was just getting warmed up.
I know,
I've got 4 more hours to do.
I have to have part 2. But I think the emphasis that I wanted to share with you, it's been great that we've seen that you've been prepared. Often you see about these things, preparation of business preparation, and DDLS Anywhere. I'd encourage everyone to have a look at this, and it's certainly not only being prepared, but allow you to switch very, very quickly and maintain that customer experience. And I think
there is an irony that we switched very quickly, but now we're looking at moving back in a gradual. We're putting so much effort into project managing that and getting that absolutely right. Whereas boom, we had to change. Now we're going back. We've got the luxury of time on our side a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. And it's really nice. I think I appreciated your observation, and that's a great hint for anyone listening about if you are looking at a career. Don't discount being a trainer. You've got Gary's details. Think about, if you feel that this could be something that you can do, have a discussion, and organisations such as DDLS, dare say, always look on the lookout for good trainers, as we find, and your location now isn't always a limiting factor. So I think that's a really good start. Gary, thank you. And I will say, how many Daleks do you have?
I had to audit them all to ship them from the UK when I moved here. I can tell you there are 37 in this house somewhere.
37 Daleks. Well, I won't tell my wife because she's petrified of Daleks, has been all the time. So, Gary, any other final comments before we close, and then we'll work from there?
I would say we've all been on this journey together. Some degree of normality, I refuse to call it new normal, is on its way. I think we'll all learn from this, and we will always be able to. Maybe we should all get a digital badge for saying, hey, we were part of the COVID 2020 pandemic and came out the other side richer people.
Well, I do. It's great in our country and in New Zealand. We are seeing, this is early June, we are starting to see signs. But I do think there's a lot of lessons. So let's not forget capturing those lessons and be ready for whatever happens. Thank you very much for your opportunity this afternoon. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend. Good to talk to you.